Hi, my name is Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest report which suggests that the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, I have to keep mentioning his name because we sometimes forget who he is, we don't really see him very often. So he's apparently ruled out any reshuffle of his cabinet before 2021, which is leaving exasperated Conservative MPs with only one option if they want to get their government back on track: reshuffle the guy at the top. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So when it comes to reshuffles, I mean, you don't want too many, of course. It makes you look like your government's in chaos. But there needs to be that sort of threat in the background to focus ministers on their success criteria. If you don't do a well enough job, or if you make an ash of this, then you're gone. We've got other people who can do your job. Now, earlier this year, there was a suggestion that there'd be a reshuffle before summer. This didn't happen. Then it was going to be in September for the autumn. Now Boris Johnson is reported to have said that there might be the odd tweak, but he's not going to mess around too much with his cabinet until he gets Brexit done. I saw that statement. I thought, well, there's a couple of things here. The first is, I thought he got Brexit done. You know, in order to try and distract attention away from the damage that actual Brexit will actually cause, he insisted that his MPs, all civil servants, and the media stop using the term Brexit in anything other than the past tense. Brexit was done on the 31st of January 2020. We minted some coins and everything, as far as he was concerned. And he marshalled his supporters to reinforce that message, which they dutifully did and continue to do so on this channel. The reason? Because he didn't want people linking border queues, empty shelves at the supermarket, difficulty in obtaining medicines, anything like that, with Brexit. So determined was he to try and convince the country that Brexit was in the past and that any future difficulties we may experience were actually due to some other cause. I mean, I don't know what. That he abolished the government departments set up specifically to deal with Brexit. The Department for Exiting the European Union was dissolved just when its work became most important. It wasn't the job of the department just to sort out a withdrawal agreement. Its job was to deal with Brexit, everything to do with it. The Department for Exiting the European Union does not exist anymore, and the difficult task of getting us ready for the end of the transition period was then subsumed into other departments, where there was of course no coordination, and they all had their more urgent problems to deal with as well. But that's just a little aside. The second thought, and the more important thought, is this is incredibly dangerous and rather worrying thing to do. It's incredibly dangerous because what he is telling senior cabinet ministers is that they are completely safe from consequences. I mean, try not to be filmed beheading babies or anything, but you're basically safe from the sort of thing that would normally get you sacked. He's alluded to maybe a small movement in autumn, like I said, but no sweeping changes. Now that means that the incompetent ministers, which currently numbers most of the cabinet, are in place for another 4 months at least. Which is quite dangerous. But it is also worrying because then you wonder why. If he's already suggesting that he's going to get rid of a load of them, because that is what he's suggested. The language suggests a load of them are going, if not a majority, then why put it off? Particularly when his backbench MPs are calling for it. Why is Johnson so keen to keep these people in their place until the end of the transition period? Is it because he fears what they might do if he sacks them now? In which case, what is it that they won't be able to do after the transition period that they can do now? Or is it the other way around? Does Johnson know that those around him are incompetent and he understands no way he can keep them in place and maintain power in the long term? He knows that his government is failing and these are not the people to pull him out of the hole. But he daren't promote competent people because then they will insist on doing their jobs properly, which at the moment he'd rather they didn't. Either way, it is an incredibly Boris Johnson thing to announce that you are going to reshuffle your cabinet based on an event, not based on the suitability at any particular time of those in the various posts and the potential suitability of those who could occupy those posts instead. It is a classic putting the cart before the horse, isn't it? And When I read, so one of the accounts was in the Telegraph, which is the paper that used to employ Boris Johnson before he became Prime Minister. It's since turned away from it, no longer supports him. Still supports the Conservatives, and it still largely supports Brexit, although it has to be said it does not support ending the transition period without a deal. But anyway, there was a quote in there that, like I said, there'd be minor changes after the summer and then a full reset in the new year. Full reset. So he's planning on a major clear out in 2021 as we enter our post-Brexit future. You couldn't imagine any past Prime Minister saying that. And we've had some dodgy ones. You couldn't imagine any of them saying that. Because a full reset, like I said, suggests that most of your cabinet are unsuitable. That's why you get rid of a cabinet minister. They're unsuitable. It might not be that they're incompetent. It might just be that they're a political liability because of something in their personal life. But they are unsuitable. To have a large number of unsuitable ministers in the heads of all these government departments is surely a disaster for the country. I mean, it's a disaster to have one bad minister, one bad cabinet minister. To have like a load of them that requires a full reset, absolute disaster. And that would mean that the government need to urgently address it. But no. But I'm a pragmatic sort. So, I mean, having these people remain in post is going to mean even more disasters to come. Nothing I can do about that. Look at what they've already done in 2020. And we're still not quite even 2/3 the way through 2020 yet. It's going to happen whether I like it or not, and people are going to suffer immensely. Innocent people. But looking on the bright side, it's the only way you can look at it, you can at least say that it will be easy pickings for Keir Starmer and his Labour front bench, most of whom are inexperienced in frontline politics. It'll be a very nice way of easing them into it. It also means that Labour could well overtake the Conservatives in the polls before the year out. It's already now very, very close. This should not have been possible. After the stonking win in the general election, obviously we'd have expected Labour under a decent leader to overtake the Conservatives long before the next general election, but not this soon. To have won such a large majority in the general election, albeit with a minority of voters, first past the post, but still, if they are overtaken by the end of the year by a party that recorded its worst ever general election result since, for nearly a century, I mean, surely that's never happened before. That can't have, I haven't checked, but that can't have happened before. Because make no mistake, there is zero way that these cabinet ministers are not going to carry on making cock-up after cock-up before this year's out. There's no way it's like, all right, they've made all the cock-ups, it'll just be steady as she goes for the rest of the year. No chance at all. No chance, because they are actually incompetent. It's not just that they are trying to do terribly wicked things. They're really, really thick. And it's almost like their policies are designed to piss the public off, so they will. And what about afterwards? And I don't just mean the consequences of Brexit. Obviously, that's going to be a factor. Even if Boris Johnson agrees the bare bones deal, if he's planning a full reset of his cabinet, I mean, in terms of political consequences, he's planning a full reset of his cabinet, so he says, in January. But he daren't do it now. So what happens when he does stab a load of them in the back? Will any of them bite back? Because you can imagine how it's going on. So he's announced a full reset. So most of the cabinet know that most of them are gone in January, or a hell of a lot of them. Each individual one will be having a little private conversation with Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson will put them at their ease. To Dominic Raab, yeah, I'm getting rid of most of these feckless losers. Don't you worry, Dom, though. I like chaps called Dominic. You may have noticed, you'll be all right. Then to Priti Patel, yeah, I'm getting rid of most of these feckless losers, but don't you worry, you're ruthless. I like your style. I'll definitely keep you in place. And he'll be going around privately telling all of these people the same thing. And then in January, when he drops a load of them through the trapdoor, what then? That is surely going to be a recipe for some fireworks in the Conservative Party. And that, of course, is assuming that backbench MPs leave it that long. Because I've said sometime before, we're coming up to the test point now. If ever Labour do overtake the Conservatives in the polls, they may well decide that that's it. Enough is enough. They may decide that being ahead in the polls, you can play a defensive game. Once you're behind in the polls, you've then got to play catch up. and maybe they'll not fancy their chances of that. Maybe they'll say enough's enough, we need a bounce back, and if the only way we can get a bounce back is with a new leader, then that's the way we'll go. Interesting times, interesting times. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.